Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of Nursing Your Way to Wealth. Both Alexes are back again. We had a short hiatus in between this. The other Alex went on holiday and I had some surgery, so he had definitely a better time of it than me. Today's topic that we're going to talk about is our top 5 finance books that we've learnt from, because he's obviously read a lot of books. I've also read some as well. So we thought it'd be a good idea for us both to talk about which books we've got the most value from and to give a short summary, a really short summary of each one. I've also got a number of these books at home, which I'm happy to post out to any of our listeners for free. All you have to do is email us at the end and just say, send me a book and pick which one. I'll put a list of the books that we have underneath the episodes as well. I've only got one copy of each, so if you want one, do be quick. Okay, so do you want to say anything else before I start, or should I just start with number one?
Yeah, I think I'll just say, yeah, hi everybody again, and looking forward to learning about Alex's books and sharing my five with you, and also very glad that Alex is back up and running after his surgery.
Yeah, kidney stones are no joke. So, anyone, if you're listening, my kidney stones were horrendously painful, both pre and post surgery. The surgery was actually okay, but main cause dehydration. So, I talk about it a lot. I tell other people to stay hydrated all day, every day, but don't listen to my own advice. So now I'm 2 to 3 liters of water a day because I do not ever want to go through that again at all. So, book number one, in no particular order. It's not like a favorite number one all the way down to five. It's just in no particular order. The first one for me, really, it's a seminal book in finance and psychology. It's Morgan Housel himself, The Psychology of Money. I really like this one. I've listened to it on Audible probably 4 times now. It's my most listened to book because I find it so easy to listen to. It's essentially 20 short stories around money and behavior. And Morgan really digs deep into certain psychology aspects of how we perceive money and how we view other people with money. And he talks about A, our perceptions, and B, how we feel, and his suggestions on what to do with money, but also why we do the things. So, one of the key points I always remember is people often spend money to promote status or to promote wealth or feelings of like feelings that they have about themselves, when actually people want respect and admiration. And spending money won't buy you those things. That has to come from meaningful personal relationships. He also talks about the stories that humans tell themselves. And anyone can convince themselves that they need to buy a particular thing or they want to buy a particular thing. We're very good at doing that. And if you think about it, some of the stock market movements, and in fact, maybe all stock market movements, are based on stories that we're telling ourselves about how we perceive the world to be. And then people act on those perceptions, and then it's a reactive model. So what person A reacts, and then person B, C, and D all react because person A's done something. And then it kind of snowballs from there in a positive or a negative way. If you look at one of the stock market crashes, say like 87 or something, or the dot com bust, it kind of starts off slowly and then it snowballs when people pick up wind of perception of things. So for me, it really highlights the thing that I don't often do is question my own thoughts. And it's a really good reminder about questioning it. Does this monetary decision fit where I want to be, where I want to go? Will it get me closer to it, or will it take me further away? So it's something certainly to keep in mind. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I'd wholeheartedly recommend it. So, Alex, over to you for your first book.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And yeah, I would definitely second the assessment there of Psychology of Money. It's a really good book. The first one on my list is a book called Your Money or Your Life, which is by Vicky Robin. And this is very much kind of grounded in the financial independence and retire early movement. And for me, it's a great starter book for anybody that's kind of new to the to wanting to become financially independent. And for me, what I really took from it is the notion of you are trading your time for money, and you have to get to a position where you are earning money independent of you trading your time. And there's some really powerful tools and techniques that are outlined in the book. One of them is creating your real hourly wage. So you may start, and that's one of the first things that is suggested is you may get paid an hourly rate, which is what is written in your contract. But actually, if you then really consider how much time are you spending either before and after, before work, getting ready, commuting, you're uh, thinking about your work going in, you've kind of your commute coming home, how long is it taking you to decompress? The actual time taken to is much more than you would think, and so therefore your hourly wage is actually a lot less. And so, and this book really hammers home how you need to be really conscious of that, and that you're trading what they call in the book as life energy. And the whole premise of it is, and the whole premise of the book and what it leads up to is trying to build up passive income streams where you are detaching your time from your money or your earnings to allow you to live the life that you want to live and not be chained to a desk and not be at the behest of an employer for it's kind of for the rest of your life. It's a really, really interesting book, nice and easy to read. And Vicky Robin herself is a bit of a superstar now within that kind of financial independence movement. So would really suggest that as a starting point.
Yeah, just a quick thought on that one. It's the original book written in 1992, and it's largely remained unchanged. It had like a refresh, I think, in 2008, but all of those lessons that you described, Alex, are still true today. And I'd probably argue that they'd still be true in 40, 50 years' time. I personally, I've read it, really enjoyed it as well. It's really got me to question, like you say, the amount of time I'm putting in. And I now do that for every job. It's what's the salary? What's the total compensation in terms of pensions? How long will it take me to get there? How much energy will it take me? And what's eventually is what's my hourly rate, my true hourly rate, not just what you think you're getting. So that's it. So for me, number 2, the second book for me is again psychology based. It's Influence by Robert Cialdini. This one it's not really finance based, but it's incredibly powerful in terms of thinking about how humans think, which is pretty much my bag. So as a short summary of the book, the people use shortcuts to make decisions, and that's true in all aspects of life. If there's a quick way of doing something and you know about it, your brain will default to that. I think once, I think it's Bill Gates, could be mistaken, said he'd hire a lazy person to do a job because they'll figure out the most efficient way of doing it. Because our brains do that. Our brains don't want to work hard. They want to work easy, in rest and digest mode, and not do anything difficult. So, and people use those shortcuts to not manipulate people, but to get what they need. So salespeople use it. People who scam other people can use it. And certainly people who build up trust in people also use some of these techniques. One of the things that stuck out to me most, there's a good number of key points in the book. The one I'm going to labour on is belief in authority. So we're all brought up to believe that people in authority are right. So doctors, policemen, government, sort of. And other people that you respect or told to respect, and you just believe what they say. And interestingly, I dug a bit more into it because I've heard of an experiment about nurses giving lethal doses of medicine just because a doctor told them to, thinking that, the doctor must know something that I don't, therefore I'll give it. And it's an experiment by a chap called Hoeffling, all the way back in 1966, and that they looked at in a regular London hospital setting. I think they studied 22 nurses, and they were all received a phone call from a mystery Dr. Smith, who isn't known to them but claimed to be a doctor. and asked for a certain amount of a particular medicine to be administered to a patient in a particular room, all set by an experimenter. No one actually came to any harm whatsoever, but they realised at the end 21 out of the 22 people, the nurses, would give a lethal dose or a harmful dose of medicine just because a doctor has told them to do so. And that, for me, working in medicine, is terrifying. And I think that it just goes to show that we do believe that there is bias there in believing in authority. And you'd like to think, oh no, that wouldn't happen to me. But these are all trained people. And there have been times that I've probably been a victim of that as well, of just believing something because a doctor's told me that. I've never given anyone too much medicine, just in case you're wondering. But it makes me think about belief in what we call authority figures, and really doing your own research, questioning things, making your own informed opinion about something. I don't think can do any harm in understanding a bit more. So I don't know, Alex, have you read Cialdini's book or no?
I haven't read it, but I think I need to. I mean, I have heard of a similar of an experiment. I think is it Stanley Milgram who did an experiment which is I think would it was set up in a similar way, but this was people were taking a quiz, and if they got a question wrong, they would get an electric shock, and there was a scientist sat next to the participant, and each time they got a question wrong, they would increase the voltage to a point where they got to a point where the voltage would actually kill the person. And it was similar. I think over 70-80% of people would actually have electrocuted the quiz participant and killed them because of the authority figure telling them that kind of almost the experiment needs to continue. Please, please carry on. And yeah, but I think that the question everything, make sure you have your own opinions and do your own research is a really valuable message that you said.
Yeah, just on that quickly, you're absolutely right. It is Stanley Milgram, 63, I think. And all the experimenter said was something like when they're ratcheting up these voltages and giving it to a person, they're just playing an audio clip of screaming in the background. No one's actually, again, is hurt. But the experimenter said things like, you must continue, you cannot stop. The experiment means you have to continue. And it's all things like that that provide additional pressure, I think, to do these particular things. And it's incredible. Your recall of that, if you've only just read it, is spot on. So over to you for your second book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so my second book is one of my favorites, and it's The Richest Man in Babylon. And so this is written by a chap called George Clason, and it is set in Babylon for like 4,000 years ago, and it's a series of very short stories with a main character called Arcad, I think from memory, and they are kind of fables for which have really good life lessons and lessons for personal finance. So these are covering things such as you must increase, always increasing your income, make sure that you're saving at least, it says pay your future self at least 10% of your earnings, invest, make sure that you are keeping your expenses to a minimum, kind of stay out of debt, always be a hard worker because and Alex, we were chatting just before on the podcast around the harder you work, the luckier you get. And there's a really good story in there about a man who is he's a slave and he works really hard, even though he's obviously not getting paid or not, he's living in brutal conditions, but he keeps a positive mindset and works hard and eventually becomes a wealthy man as the owner, as his owner, I think, passes down some of his wealth. So they're set, they're set over 4,000 years ago, and the book has been out for I think over 100 years. It might be 120 years. It's been out. It's very old, but the stories and the lessons, I think it's the same for a lot of the books that I'll be suggesting. Are the themes are really consistent, and there's themes which are they're still very pertinent in today. So, and I think the book is I don't know how many pages, 150 pages. It's a really easy read, and I would suggest it to anybody. Again, it's a really good starter book on personal finance, and in a way that is in a way that's written that's really engaging and in a nice story format. So it's not like a textbook or factual like some of the other books that I'll be suggesting.
Yeah, so whilst you were talking, I googled that. It is Arcad, the protagonist, I guess, or person who's in the book. I haven't read it myself. I've read a summary. I don't know if that counts, but no idea how many pages it is either. But there's simple lessons that, if done well, will mean that you're just in a much better position than if you sort of hadn't done them as well. And you also, when you were speaking as well, you said about keeping a positive mindset through a struggle, and that's putting it mildly. It reminded me a little bit of Viktor Frankl's work about being in like a war camp, and I cannot for the life of me remember the book name from Viktor Frankl. It might come to me. It might not. Hold on, let me Google it. It's Man's Search for Meaning, a little bit. So in Man's Search for Meaning, it's just about, under overwhelming odds, staying positive, because it's the one thing, your thoughts, that someone can't take away from you. So number 3 for me is The Behaviour Gap by Carl Richards. And he's titled it that because it looks into the gap, which is, as Carl puts it, a rift between what we know we should do and what we actually do. So it's all about human behavior around money. We all know generally what we should be doing. It's very similar to like food, exercise, nutrition, etc. We know the good things that we should be doing, but our brains and us, we don't always do those good things because it's hard to do difficult things. I found it really, it's one of the earlier books that I read. Carl is famous for drawing with a Sharpie a lot of his ideas out into simple formats. The book is full of drawings. It's not a picture book, but it's got a fair few drawings in it. He makes it really digestible, and it gives you an additional thing, a visual cue to think about. And he actually has a calendar that you can buy. And I did buy one copy in 2019, I think, just outlining it. And each month of the year is a drawing, and it just makes you think a bit about it. If you haven't seen it, Alex, and all of our listeners, I would certainly have a look. They're real basic drawings, but they've got an awful lot of meaning behind them. And I think that is one of the books I have. I do have one of those. So if you're listening and you want a copy of that, send me an email and just give me your name and address, and I will post you said book. I only have one copy, so whoever's first will get it. And Alex, back to you for number 3.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. That sounds really interesting, the behavior gap. I'll let one of the listeners have your copy, and I'll source my own. But that
You're going to buy your own.
yeah, but that sounds really interesting book. My third book is another a classic, for want of a better word. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad by a guy called Robert Kiyosaki, who you probably see him if you ever watch. He's on YouTube quite a lot and posts all sorts of content. So some of it can be slightly controversial, but he became well known and became very rich by and through his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the whole premise of this book is he, as a youngster, his family was poor. He had a poor dad who was very well educated, had a normal 9-to-5 job, and he had a friend at school whose dad was very wealthy. And it talks through the lessons which his rich dad would teach him, and he outlines in the book the differences in attitude and thinking towards big financial decisions between his rich dad and his poor dad, which is and so I guess the big things to call out on that, and it does really get you to think, is that the big lesson is rich people buy assets, and assets are things which generate you cash flow. So in the case of Rob, and so things Those could include property, investments, or things that generate cash flow or things that go up in value. The poor middle classes buy things which depreciate in value, so they will use their income to purchase liabilities. The Robert Kiyosaki got rich through property, so that is his wheelhouse, for want of a better term. He now owns, alongside his wife, I think over 4 or 5 thousand properties in and around the US, and he loves the cash flow that they bring to him. So he invested a lot of his income earlier on in his life purchasing rental properties. He's he does invest, I think, quite a lot in gold, and I think he may even have some crypto. But the fundamentals for him are property. And one of the big things which comes out of the book as well is, and it's a hot potato in any personal finance discussion, but it's the home that you live in is often viewed as an asset, but it is only his definition of an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. Anything that takes money out of your pocket is a liability. And so if your house is not generating you money on putting money into your pocket, it is therefore a liability. And if you start to just take that mindset of anything and using your income to purchase assets, and those are the things which will ultimately generate you cash flow, that's the fundamental for Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's also a big advocate of learning accounting as being the language of business, and he actually, I think, met his wife at an accounting course that they both took. So really interesting book. Probably one to read after kind of The Richest Man in Babylon and Your Money or Your Life, but yeah, a real classic.
Yeah, I've had a copy of that before. I've already given it away, lent it to somebody. The big thing that I remember from that was, I think he used to sell like photocopiers or something. I don't know. And he said, um, when I get to this certain level of passive income, I'll buy myself like some kind of Porsche sports car of some sort. And everyone thought because he was doing really well at sales, that's the reason he's bought the car. But actually, his passive income's bought the car. His efforts haven't bought the car. His additional income has. It's an interesting one. It's also a good one. It's one of the first, I think, finance books I ever read. It's certainly, very close. So the fourth one for me is a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And the key message of that, it's kind of a blend of life choices. And it's a blend of kind of finance, minimalism, the things that you say yes and no to, and decision making. But his motto really is do less, but better. So you could say no to things that aren't important in life, that take time and energy away from you. So you can say yes to the really important things. And I think someone else I've spoken to about the book a long time ago, they now have a philosophy that it's either a hell yes or it's a no. So unless it's really good and really exciting and they're really up for doing it, they're just going to say no. And that protects a bit of their time from doing anything that they perhaps don't get any value from. I have a paper copy of this book as well, so same thing applies. If you want a copy, please email me. I'd like the copies to go to different people as well, so please don't say, "Can I have one of all of your books?" So yeah, everyone gets one. So Alex, that's pretty much it for my book number 4. Over to you for number 5.
Thank you. And yeah, my book number 4 is The Millionaire Next Door, and this is written by a chap called Tom Stanley, and it was based on a kind of a longitudinal study of US millionaires. I think done might be from, I think it was published might be the late 90s, and the the whole premise of the book is to understand what the typical millionaire looks like. And contrary to popular belief, they are not flashy, draped in designer goods, living in ginormous mansions. They're actually um, very frugal, very understated. They've been worked super hard. A lot of them are business owners, but not in super sexy tech businesses. A lot of them are in um, very kind of run of the mill basic business and quite simple businesses. They've got they earn sizable amounts of money, but not crazy amounts. So in and around the six figures, but they are heavily investing um, all that cash, and they've been doing it over a long period of time. There's very few actually make it to be a millionaire. I think the average age is in the mid 50s, and it's just a really interesting book to learn about some of the habits that these millionaires have, and I think it just helps to dispel some of the notions that you see all across social media of kind of get rich quick. A lot of this, it's a lot of hard work, it's discipline, it's living well below your means, it's consistently investing, it's a lot of it is working for yourself, and over a long period of time that has proven to make them very successful. And so it's a really good book to to really learn and get under the skin of a lot of those habits, which and I think is very useful, especially in the day and age where everything on social media, there's so much content on there, which is, people always look like you, unless you're sailing in a yacht in Monaco, having just come off your Ferrari and living in a penthouse, that, it seems like everybody's living like that, or certainly on my Facebook feed. But it's just a really good way of grounding yourself back in the facts of this is how the majority of millionaires have actually made it. And so it's very encouraging and it's a really inspiring book. And again, yeah, I'd really recommend anybody interested in the subject to give it a read.
That's interesting. I think, and you're right. It's a lot of people are shown as being ultra wealthy by drinking like Margot wine or something and getting out of a Lamborghini in like a really tailored suit or dress or something like that. And there are people who do that, but it's certainly not the majority. I think just a nod back to Morgan Housel at that point. He makes another point in that book, The Psychology of Money, where if say someone buys a really expensive car, the only metric you know about them is they either had the money to buy the car and they've spent it, or they had the amount to rent it monthly and now they don't. So that's the only thing that you really know about them. And more people look at the car rather than the person driving it. It's not necessarily that they're not really jealous of the person, they just like the car or to own the car or something like that. That's another book that I used to have and I've given to someone else, a chap called Harry. So hopefully he's got some use out of that one. So for me, where am I at? My last book, number 5, is really seminal in the FIRE community, written by J.L. Collins, and it's The Simple Path to Wealth. And actually, both Alex and I had this on our list, and he kindly said he would add a 5th one because I've nicked it. It's fundamental, simple lessons on investing. He started it from a blog because he wanted to tell his daughter about investing and how to make the best use of her earning potential over her career. She didn't want to know, being, young at the time, so he turned it into a blog and now a book. The main message from that is simple explanations of how index funds work. Learn from the mistakes that he's made. Certainly, he's very vocal about making mistakes and investing in the late 80s. And it's really a homage to how powerful being disciplined and being consistent with the stock market is. And it's something that I've listened to a few times. There's loads of good anecdotes in it. And he reads the book himself, which is really, I really like it. And he's got a really unique voice for narrating things. So if you haven't ever heard J.L. Collins speak, just YouTube a short clip of him or listen to the book because his voice is something else. He's written a new book called Pathfinders, and that's due on October 31st, Halloween. I don't know if there's any significance of that, or maybe he's picked it or not, but he's also well known for doing his annual monetary review on his wife's birthday because he then won't forget it. So I wonder if this Halloween has a an impact like that as well, possibly. That's a really, really good one. Sadly, I don't have a copy of that one either. But yeah, that's it from me for books. So Alex, back to you for number 5.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And yeah, I just agree on the Simple Path to Wealth is one of my favorites, and yeah, some really great lessons in there, and a nice easy read as well. My fifth book is by a chap called Grant Sabatier, and it's called Financial Freedom, and it is all about his story of he'd come out of college, I think worked a few jobs, ended up back at his parents in his mid-20s, and he had about a $1.26 or something in his bank account, and he set up he made the goal of becoming a millionaire and financially free within 5 years. And this book charts his story through he trained to be a to build websites. He then went out and I think he worked for another company building websites for 6 months, then left, set up his own business building websites for he started off building websites for lawyers, and he said within about 6 months of starting out, he'd sold his first $50,000 website gig, and that he then started his own business and grew it from there, and then did actually become he had just over $1 million in assets in investments after about 5 years. I think he retired at age 31, and he now creates and he's got he might have been 34. Either way, he was very young, and he now runs the website called Millennial Money, which I'd suggest giving a. It's a very very good website. But yeah, this book it's Grant Sabatier is really good at explaining the intricacies and the practicalities of implementing his of how he went about selling selling gigs, the side hustles he did, how he went about investing. He splits out where his investments were, so majority in index funds, and he also invested quite heavily into the Facebook, Apple, Amazon, into the FANG stocks, Netflix and Google. And he, yeah, it's a really good, almost detailed breakdown of how to do it. There's a great chapter in there on how to get a pay rise and how to go about, the practicalities of doing that, and also the practicalities of running a business and selling and how to get yourself out there. Really worth a read. He's heavily influenced by Vicky Robin. I think they're actually very good friends, and I think she writes the forward to the book as well. So again, and he's become a real powerhouse kind of within the financial independence movement. And it's an excellent book, really inspiring. I've read it a couple of times now, and yeah, his website is also really solid. Another thing I would mention, it's almost also semi-related to Grant Sabatier, is another website called Mr. Money Mustache. As if I think he also has gets a few mentions in Grant Sabatier's book, and his website is a guy called Pete Adini who retired. He definitely retired at age 31, and runs a website called Mr. Money Mustache he's got a really unique way of blogging and writing, really engaging, and yeah, would recommend both of those as useful and yeah, really great resources on your path to learn more about finance.
Yeah, Grant is. Yeah, I've read his book, or should I say, listened to it on Audible. I mean, other platforms are available. Grant is heavy involved in the Topia app that we spoke about last week or the week before with Logan Leckie. He's, I think, partnered with Logan on that, and Grant actually does. I don't know if they're weekly or monthly or something, but he does like a workshop. I think it's pre-recorded, but it's just him giving advice on how to build businesses, how to change your finances, how to think differently about things. I've listened to one and it was pretty helpful. So if you want a taste of that without buying the book, Topia is the way forward for that. I think that's been a useful kind of breakdown of a couple of different books that we've discussed. Again, if you want any of the books that that I've discussed and I've said that I've had, email me and I'll send you a copy. But just quickly, the list of those are Smarter Investing by Tim Hale, The Behavior Gap by Carl Richards, Zero Limits by Joe Vitale, Money, A User's Guide by Laura Watterly, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I also have Progress by Johan Norberg, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I would love to send some of these books out to people purely because my wife wants rid of them, and I'm taking up a lot of space on her bookshelf. So if you want a copy, email us. Email address will be below, as well as this list of books. It'll be first come, first served, and I'll wing them out to you. Alex, is there anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap this one up?
No, not really. I think we've covered some good books, and I've definitely noted down The Behavior Gap and Essentialism for my reading list. So yeah, thanks for recommending those. But yeah, it'd be great to hear as well from any listeners if they've got their own any books that they have found really influential or would recommend to the wider group.
Yeah, definitely. So we're all ears. If you email us, it'll come to our shared inbox. But both Alexes here will get it, and we'll reply to every single one, and it'll be us, not someone else doing it, and it won't be an automated message or anything like that. So thank you all for listening. Stay tuned for next week, and if you want a book, email us.
None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.